Okay, so now I'm sending data across. Let's have a look. Okay, so we're live now. Let's have a look. Test the audio. Okay. So good. Right. Okay. So let's change that here. Make sure the quality's okay. Whoa! What a day that was. What a day. So for those wondering, there was a conference today. Unexpectedly, actually, it was announced in the morning, or was it midday? For 2 o'clock UK time. I was a little bit surprised by it. Wasn't expecting it. But it came out. So why don't we actually have a play of it and see, for those who are wondering what the hell it's about, let's actually run the video clip from here. I think it'll run okay. Let's double check it. So go to Reform UK. Right. Conference is quite long, so what I'm going to do is the details are actually very important in the conference, so you can go watch in your own time. Let's go to the Q&A, because that one was quite something. So after 25 minutes, so I want to share my screen. I should be able to. Okay, so I'll get to this article in a second. This is from Sky News. It's truly baffling that they went with this. I mean, it's actually quite, like, we shouldn't be surprised, should we? Just perplexed by it. Okay, so here it is. Let's get the depth of audio on, which is on, so that's good. There we go, cool. Right. So this is the Q&A after the conference. Now, Farage spoke first. Then he brought in Eddie Reynolds, who's on the left there on the screen, sitting down with Nigel Farage. And she was speaking more about what happened with the inquiry, why it's not going to happen, pretty much, and why in fact she left. That was the biggest reason for the back and forth. So the Farage went back on the podium, he started speaking again, then he went to this Q&A session. And this was actually quite remarkable. Now, Sarah Potion should be thanking Farage. Should be thanking him for doing this. And maybe it was calculated for Farage, I don't know. I can't confirm that. But because everyone's talking about this, shows they're taking attention away from the non-story that was, as I said, it was a waste of time, nobody cares about adverts, right? I don't know why Sarah Potion did it, but she did. And maybe a lesson learned for all those at Reform to stop going on shows like Talk TV or even GB News. I know Farage has his own show on GB News, that's fine because that's you controlling it. Sarah Potion might actually do herself a favour by running her own little YouTube channel, making comments like this. And Farage is very unhappy, you can tell. In fact, Farage is unhappy. Farage is very unhappy throughout the entire event. And that was actually more to do with anger more than anything else. And I completely understand why. If I was in issues, I felt the same way. In fact, me and Farage have kind of come out with the exact same thing about Sarah Potion. So I don't feel exonerated by this or anything like that, or validated. But the fact is, we weren't wrong. And this actual video demonstrates, this one coming up now, demonstrates why Farage is in charge, and none of you fools out there who keep doubting him are even close to running a political party, let alone reform the UK. So let's play it and take step by step.
Great stuff. Okay, we have a lot of questions. I'll do my best to get through them as quickly as I can within reason. Harry Farley from the BBC.
Thank you, Mr Farage. Harry Farley from the BBC. The Prime Minister has accused your MP, Sarah Pochin, of shocking racism and the sort of thing that will tear our country apart.
Now, the reason I paused here, so I should have mentioned as well, I want you to pay close attention to Ellie here as much as you can, not because she's a lady, but because of the fact that her mannerisms, you can tell, not because she was getting uncomfortable with these stupid questions, she was getting frustrated. That's the reason why she did that. It was like a mini outburst, if that. It wasn't really rude. It was actually very professional for the way she... I would have been like 100 times worse than what she said after hearing all that nonsense from the media. But pay attention to her closely as this Q&A progresses, right to the point of when she says, "Can I say something, Nigel?" Right? We'll get to that later. We'll come to that later on. Let's carry on with the clip.
Do you accept what Sarah Pochin said was racist, and are you considering any disciplinary action? And on what you've announced today, you were one of the ones leading the call for a national inquiry. Is this not rowing back on what you previously called for?
I'd love a national inquiry if it was laser-focused on the grooming gangs issue. But being that, to begin with, the government didn't want to do it, then was forced to U-turn and accepted it, now that 5 months have gone by, I actually think the public are running out of patience, and certainly the survivors are running out of patience, that anything will actually ever happen that is of any value at all. I don't think Parliament should turn itself into a court on a regular basis, but I do think there are times when Parliament needs to use the power that it has to re-establish public trust. So no, I now believe this is the best, the fastest, the most effective and the most open route that we can possibly use on that. The words that Sarah Pochin used in response to a caller into Talk Radio on Saturday morning were without ugly and taken on their own, could be read to be very, very unpleasant indeed. I am unhappy with what she has done. I can't underestimate that, and she fully knows how I feel. However, it was in the broader context of DEI madness in the advertising industry, something which anybody with half a brain can recognise has been going on since about 2021. So I understand the basic point, but the way she put it, the way she worded it, was wrong and was ugly. And if I thought that the intention behind it was racist, then I would have taken a lot more action than I have to date. And that is because I don't.
Right, so the first question that comes out of their mouths is about Sarah Pochin. He was expecting that. So I think Farage was fully prepped for this. As you can tell, he was very angry. He expressed the fact that he was very disappointed with her. He actually told her that, hence the apology coming out of Sarah Pochin tweet afterwards. And you might think, well, was there a need for all this? Well, the question's been asked, and I think he knew that was going to come up during this press conference, which was all about grooming gang inquiry, nothing to do with Sarah Pochin. And of course, they couldn't help it. So the media actually thought initially there's a great opportunity for them to think, oh, this actually might have something to do with Sarah Pochin. Of course, it didn't. And then two, they can carry on attacking her by going after him and saying, why have you not fired her, basically? And saying, well, this person says this about her. And he just made it clear. I didn't agree with what she, the way she said it was poorly worded. Remember, she's an MP. She's not one of us. She's an MP. Member of Parliament. Two, the reason why she was not, no further action was taken, disciplinary, her whip was removed, anything like that, was because she was saying that in the context of this advert, the advertisements happen when it comes to DEI. That's why I said at this point, I don't need to come out and say this, that's why I made that video. I did a short video on this when I got people disliking it because I didn't quite understand what I meant by it. Exactly as Farage has put it, is exactly the way I've put it. It's like you're causing unnecessary time being wasted here on these issues. We've got bigger issues to talk about. Farage is talking about the economy, immigration, crime, healthcare, right? Those are the biggest issues, not advertisements, all right? And that's why if you're going to make decisions to go on these stupid talk shows who are only after clicks and likes and grifting, then do better. And the fact that you've actually decided to, because if Sarah felt it was wrong, in a way, reference to Farage going after on this, she would have quit. Sarah Potion would have quit. She'd have said, yeah, you're right from Mr. Farage, it was stupid of me, I'm going to come out and apologise. Otherwise, she'd have quit and said, I'm standing by my comments. Right? We all know what she meant, obviously, but it was stupid to begin with. So Farage now answered the question once. That's the first question. See how many times he gets asked this question over and over again and how he responds. And like I said, pay attention to Ellie, who's sitting there as well. And after what she said, we'll get to at the end, shut them all up, basically. Let's carry on.
Thank you. Moving on to Olivia Utley from GB News.
Hi, Olivia Utley, GB News. Some of the survivors and whistleblowers have talked about the danger of this inquiry marking its own homework, so police officers and social workers being involved. MPs were involved in the cover-up of this scandal as well. Couldn't you argue that a select committee investigation would be MPs just marking their own homework?
Very few.
So, at last, there's no question about Sarah Potion in the second question. The second person, the press, asking the question, there's nothing about Sarah Potion. Okay, let's carry on.
The MPs that are still in the Commons today are the same MPs that were there at the time that these abuses were happening, is the answer I would give to that. The basic point, I mean, I think your argument, Ellie, make your own, you're more than capable, but I think your basic argument was that you didn't want social workers or police chairing this inquiry.
Yeah, absolutely. Social workers and police officers are the very institutions that have failed us for decades and decades. And I think what people are forgetting as well is that institutions almost materialises it. These are real people behind these that are constantly looking at us like we're nothing and sending us away and silencing us. So I think my priority was just somebody with a heart, somebody with a little bit of humanity that would be able to fight our corner and do what we've been promised for decades, and that was to be safeguarded.
Thank you.
Wow, so right-wing of her, so extreme, so fascist of her to even say that. You even got idiots online who even lean right, saying she's doing this for the money. You're part of the problem, guys. Right, you're part of the problem. The reason I kept saying about reform staying away from all this, because if there's too much arguing within the camp on these issues like this, you are going to be stuck and you might have to take a side, which will look really bad. In some ways, you might be saying that one side here is lying and the other side is telling the truth. You can't be taking sides when it comes to grooming gang victims. Those are survivors, right? You can't be taking sides of that. That's why I would say step aside, let the shit show unfold, and then pick up the pieces from there. Not take advantage of it, but you don't get involved in that back and forth. It's getting rather silly. You see a lot of it online as well. That's why when Farage was angry with Sarah Pochen, it was more to the fact that we need some discipline here, guys. We need to be very careful what we say. This isn't 1990. This is 2025. And for the last since 2016, since Trump came in, everything you say comes under scrutiny. No matter how silly it is, no matter how not racist it is, you know what the media are like, all right? That's the point that Farage has always made.
Harry Horton, ITV News.
Thank you very much. Harry Horton, ITV News. You've criticised just now the leader of the Conservative Party, you've criticised the Labour government. If you were to set up this inquiry you've talked about in Parliament, it would require you to work with MPs from other parties. Why would they do that when you're criticising their leadership?
Criticising? Have you heard what they say about me? This is called politics. People chuck rocks at each other. What I'm proposing here, by the way, this is not a Reform UK proposal. This is a proposal that I'm going to put to the Speaker this evening, and I'm going to put to Karen Bradley. This is a proposal for Parliament to pick this issue up on a cross-party basis and to run with it. And you know something? If the government picked up this idea that I'm putting forward, do you know who the biggest beneficiary would be? Wouldn't be Reform UK, it'd be the Labour government for actually doing the right thing. So I do reject the idea that what I'm putting forward is a partisan idea on behalf of Reform UK.
And just a second question, if I can, on Sarah Poachin. She said that the sight of brown people and
There's a second one now. There's a second time they brought it up.
black people in adverts drives her mad. Can you not see... You say you don't think the intention was racist, but can you not see why the Prime Minister, why the Liberal Democrats, why the Conservatives say that they think those remarks were racist? Are you prepared to...
Yeah, you can see slowly. This is very towards the start of the actual back and forth Q&A and press conference that Ellie's getting really frustrated because you think to herself, what's this obsession about racism all of a sudden? Why weren't you obsessed like this when we were the victims? Right? It's slowly coming up. Just for her to think, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let this play out. Then eventually does pick up. You'll see it later on.
label those remarks racist?
I think I've answered the question already. The remarks were ugly, clumsy, put in a way that if you take them literally as they are on their own, you can put the worst of all interpretations on it. I understand the context in which she said it. I don't like the way in which she did it. I am very unhappy with her indeed. But if I felt the intention was deliberately and genuinely racist, I would have taken a different course of action. Thank you. Moving on.
Asked and answered twice now. Okay? How long have we been into this clip now? Maybe 6 minutes? That's twice been asked a question. Let's answer it twice the same way. It's not done yet.
On to Sam Case from Sky News.
Thank you. Ellie Rellens, I'm curious, you paint a very interesting picture of what it was like being in those meetings, talking about the inquiry. You've talked about what happened in those meetings. We're here to listen to tales of accountability. Can you name names? Who was saying these things? Who was being bullying? Who was being controlling? Were they Home Office officials? Who were they? Were they senior? And who do you think they were answering to? If there's any more detail that you can give about exactly what was going on, that would be appreciated. Nigel Farage, do you want to be on this commission? And a lot of this comes down to the Home Office. There are suggestions today, look at the asylum hotels situation, that the Home Office should be split. Do you think that's a good idea? And finally, on Sarah Poachin, can you explain why it isn't racist?
Now she's getting a little bit frustrated. You can tell that. Again, it's the third time. It's actually not a bad experience for people to sit there and listen to this live when it happens. We sit on the sidelines and watch this unfold. Seeing Ellie right there when it's happening, it's for her to see it for herself. The way she reacted is the way we all have reacted when she's just started to say, you know what, Farage, let me speak on this because I'm getting fed up. Okay? It's the third time it's been asked. Sam Coates' first question is actually from Sky News. It's actually not too bad. I think it's a very perfectly legitimate question to bring up. And of course, Ellie will answer herself. But again, he's more at Sarah Poachin talking about the remarks about to go into this situation about whether or not which part of it was not racist. He deemed it that wasn't actually classed as racist for saying this, because as he said, he points out, if she just said it as a blanket statement, that would have been a fireable offence in relation to in this case being an MP, because he's the boss, right? That's the way it works. When people don't understand this, Nigel Farage is the boss of the party. It's not a business, as you want to call it. It doesn't matter if it's politics or business. You're the boss. Guys, keep in check. You have to be kept in check. You have to be very careful. That's what Farage is doing here. He's being the manager. You guys have to be very, very careful. So you'll answer it again, and I think Eddie speaks first there. Let's just double check on that. See what comes out here first.
But a lot of time in your career looking at issues of race, you've thought about this deeply, but can you explain why you don't think those remarks were racist?
Ellie, go first. Who was it?
Naming names, I don't know whether I'm allowed to do that, but what I can confirm is that it was the Home Office and it was NWG Network. They're an organisation that work very closely with the Home Office, and they are meant to be survivor-based, survivor-led. As for the names, you can probably find who does what online. I just don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
Well, I think you might be in it privately after the event.
But I do believe that they were answering higher up, especially by the way that they were coming across. They were, you know, you have to look at us survivors. Many of us are unable to work with mental health conditions that are lifelong after suffering the abuse, and they were paying every survivor on the panel at £50 an hour.
There you are. That hasn't come out so far, which is very interesting, is it not?
It has now.
Is it not? And it may well be, Sam, that afterwards, through briefings, we might get one or two names that you might have access to, as would the rest of the room. The hotel. Who was the first person to expose the hotels? Me in 2020, going up to a hotel just west of Birmingham to say when they cross the channel, this is what happens to them. Yes, of course, there are certain companies that have made massive profits. You really have to look at the share price of one or two of them. And like you, even I'm being cautious today because I'd rather not be sued, to see what an absolute racket the whole thing has been. Yeah, so the Labour government can sort of blame the Tories, and the Tories can sort of blame the Home Office, and maybe Labour in time can blame the whole Home Office. Who's in charge of the Home Office? The British government. So why don't the British government get a grip? We were told over 20 years ago, in Blair's term, first term, that the Home Office was not fit for purpose. Well, it's about time somebody in government had the guts to deal with it. I think the most interesting thing about the hotel story that hasn't really been reported, unless I've missed it, is there are tenders now out until 2036 at least, which shows you this government has absolutely no intention of putting a stop to illegal immigration at all. And on Sarah Pochin, I think I've given quite a few answers on that subject already. Paul McNamara, Channel 4 News.
Wait for someone to bring up the part about... I'd like to bring back what Sam Coates said about the part, which part of the racist part you didn't think was racist. Essentially, that's what they're trying to say.
Afternoon, Mr. Farage. Just one question.
Just the one? Sky R7.
Hadn't noticed. Since Friday, we've heard from a number of people across the prison service, across politics, saying that, look, it's a crumbling system at the moment. Too many prisoners, not enough spaces for them, not enough prison officers. This morning, the Chief Inspector of the prisons, Charlie Taylor, said that they're relying on a large number of West African prison staff. Their fate is not certain, given changes to visa regulations at the Home Office. Under a reformed government, would you carve out some sort of way forward for prison staff to be recruited from abroad? Would you raise the salaries of prison officers to make it a more attractive prospect? If so, where's the money come from? Or would you simply say to the prison service, them's the breaks, deal with it?
I think you might have missed the point on this, that we don't object to people from the rest of the world coming to Britain if they pay their taxes, work, and become part of our, community. And what we were arguing, the other week was that over 1 million, maybe nearly 2 million people will be eligible to claim indefinite leave to remain over the course of the last 4 years. They are the consequence of the Boris wave, and once they get indefinite leave to remain, every one of them can fully access the benefit system in this country and bring dependents into the country. And that this is financially, potentially, a ticking time bomb that some think tanks say could cost us over £200 billion in the decades to come. So let's be clear on that point. On the prison service, look, we recruited over the course of the summer Vanessa Frake, thought to be the toughest prison governor in the country. She is working alongside Colin Sutton as part of our Justice and Home Affairs brief, getting us ready for policy for the next general election. All that I do know within the prison service, yes, of course, all institutions want more money, and they almost certainly have been underfunded, but one of the big problems within is morale, because many of the senior prison officers have been leaving the prison service to get work that pays as much, if not more, in private security, and being replaced by a lot of people who are deeply inexperienced. And I think what this Kabatu release showed the other day what made us all realise is this is happening all too often. So I'm not going to give you any full answers right now, but I'm going to say that as a party, we're very much on the case. And what we're doing with Vanessa in this area is what we intend to do in all areas. Let's get people with decades of experience, across whatever brief it may be, to come and help us put together the right policies. And who knows, if we won an election, people like that would find themselves as ministers. Think of that. Ministers in charge of briefs that they actually knew something about. Be quite remarkable, wouldn't it?
Right, just a note on that regarding Farage saying about policy. There's a reason why people are wondering this as well from outside, from what I've known inside Reform, is that they've all released the policies, but they're trying to hold their cards here in terms of, because they hold the cards when it comes to the general election. They're still the favourites to win. That your policies will be of no use or no good in terms of what the paper is written on, because if you come out with a policy now in some soft detail, they need to break it down, people asking more questions, so you prefer to have a much detailed policy to begin with to release to the public and to the media, in fact, but also, more importantly, that you wouldn't want to put stuff out that it's been done by other parties, in particular the government. So if you were to have some things that, in terms of taxes and the changes you want to make to the prison system, justice system as a whole, that Labour end up doing, then you need to come up with other things, pretty much, because people are going to say you're just doing the exact same thing as the government do. So this is why Reform are treading carefully on this, and I don't blame them. And of course, there's no rush to come out with economic policy, because the economic policy come out now, it's going to be different next year and the year after that, depending on what the state of our economy is. Right? The economy is getting worse every year, right now, but things may change next year and the year after that. So what you're planning to do now is not going to be the same in 2 years. People need to understand that. I'm sure most people do, but it's worth clarifying that.
Okay, moving on to Katie Harris from The Express.
Katie Harris from the Daily Express. Do you think Sadiq Khan has failed grooming gang victims in London, and should he resign?
Has he failed grooming gang victims? Yes, he's been denying that there's grooming going on in London. The police, the Met, have been denying grooming is going on in London. I can tell you today, somebody's in this room has spoken to social services in London who've openly said there are grooming gangs in London. And of course, it's more difficult to spot a particular type of grooming gang in central London than it is in Rotherham, just by the sheer size of the city, by the different communities that live in this city. Yes, maybe, Maggie Oliver made this point, maybe London is the last great grooming scandal to be uncovered, and it looks like we're very, very close to that. Claire Ellicott, Daily Mail.
Hello. Under your proposals for a parliamentary inquiry, how would you ensure victims actually get justice? Because MPs obviously have no power to bring criminal convictions against them.
Because I'll let Ellie answer this as well. I believe that what the victim survivors want is for those that are guilty to come to justice. And I believe that Parliament, acting as a court, not an inquiry, what I'm actually calling for here, Claire, is for Parliament to become a court, and that we discover, under oath, the truth about who knew what and when, and why they refused to say anything, and so that there can be prosecutions for negligence that follow. Your thoughts on this?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, all we've waited for years is closure and not feeling like we're stuck in the middle, like we're not believed and like we're silenced. We want the justice, we want the truth, and we want the protection for our future generations. That is crucial to us. It's crucial for the truth to come out. It's crucial for accountability and people to be prosecuted, yes, but it's also crucial that we can hammer down on this now so it stops happening to our children.
Quite right.
And you can sense the frustration now, because remember, she sat through this. When did it start exactly? So 25 minutes they sat down. It's been 15 minutes, she has to sit through all that. and then to this media bang on about Sarah Poach and racism when she's there for the grooming gang inquiry and why it went tits up, basically. Note on the thing that Farage said about the Parliament and the inquiry and the courts. It's important to know that it is true that Parliament can't just arrest anybody because they just don't have that power, of course. But when they come up with all these things, an investigation unfolds, and when they're actually finding out an inquiry, or it's through investigative methods they use to find, like to ask witnesses to come forward, in the form of subpoena maybe. You know, if you're lying under oath, you get in trouble. The police can then take action after that. That's the way it works. You know, police can't do anything, but if there's evidence that comes up during these inquiries, and the back and forth they have with people over the council, or local council for that matter, or MPs or RMP, the police can then take matters into their own hands. If you don't have the evidence, guys, they can't do anything. So you can have the private inquiry or the private investigation, which is what's happening on one side, which cannot come to a formal prosecution, or do this, and the same thing can happen as well. But this is done through Parliament, and the media will be in front of it all. They have no choice. Well, they will have a choice but to cover it. If they don't cover it, then it's shame on them. And in the end, it's about bringing those to justice. In the end, that's what it's all about. It's not about money, okay? It's not about picking on a particular community in the country. It's about justice. These girls went through absolute hell. It's not on for it to carry on the way, and it's still carrying on today, by the way.
Quite right. Daniel Martin, Telegraph.
Hi, Daniel Martin from the Telegraph. You said Labour wants to kick the can down the road on grooming gangs. So how can you be confident that your committee will get to the bottom of this when the majority will have to be Labour MPs, presumably?
Look, you know, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen unless Parliament as a whole, which includes a lot of Labour MPs, embraces it. I accept that. They might reject it. But I do actually seriously say to you that given their current level of standing in this country, I'm offering them an opportunity to take an idea, steal an idea from me, and try to a large extent, actually, to make it their own. As I say, I'm going to see the Speaker later on today. We'll do whatever we can this week to raise this issue in the Chamber, and if they reject it, they reject it. But it is a much cleaner, much quicker, much better solution that actually could lead to righting some of the wrongs that Ellie, and by the way, I mean, did you hear when she said that up to 250,000 people in Britain may well have been victims of grooming gangs? It is mass, industrial, racially motivated sexual assault and rape on a scale that I think even now we're still struggling to even believe. Thank you. Lucy Dunn from The Spectator.
Lucy Dunn from The Spectator. Nigel, you've always maintained that Nathan Gill was a rotten apple, but The Observer reported at the weekend that two other Brexit Party MEPs spouted the same pro-Russia lines in the European Parliament. What action, if any, are you taking to investigate connections to Russia? And if I may, Labour MP Lucy Powell appeared on the BBC to describe grooming gangs as a dog whistle issue. She, at the weekend, was the victor of the deputy leadership contest for Labour. What is your reaction to that?
Look, you know, Lucy Powell says dog whistle. There are people like Jess Phillips under enormous electoral pressure not to be too unpleasant to a particular sector of the community that might vote her out of office next time round, along with dozens of other Labour MPs. Starmer just sort of would hope and wish that the whole thing would simply go away. And that's why we've had, you know, delay after delay after delay, finally a U-turn forced. Nothing will come out of this inquiry. Nothing of any value will come out of this inquiry, and I doubt it will happen before the next general election.
I'll explain at the end of the stream what's really happening behind the scenes in regards to the inquiry and what Labour are doing. It's actually pretty obvious, but I'll explain it for those who are not sure, who have not been following this from day one. Oh, there's a mouse. Here we go.
Which is why what I offer is a firm solution. I've heard of no evidence of any wrongdoing against any other former MP of UKIP or the Brexit Party. I've heard of no other evidence of any wrongdoing from any of them. Opinions are opinions. I can't comment beyond that, other than I'm deeply shocked by Nathan Gill, you know, who I'd known for a long time, and who, for goodness sake, was a bishop. He used to preach every Sunday morning in the Mormon church. I mean, I thought he was so incorruptible he wouldn't even drink coffee. So I'm pretty shocked by it. But there you are. Just goes to show, you never absolutely know anybody. You really don't.
Quite true. But he's not wrong when he says, I can't comment on anything. There's no prosecution against these people. There's no court case about to start up. They're not being charged or anything. So why should I start? You've got someone writing about an opinion piece. Okay, might be some truth in it, but you're asking to comment on something and say, well, yeah, maybe something should be done about it, and I should fire these people. No, until something comes up, I can't act on it unless he's under investigation as well, and that'd be bad for Farage, of course. But until that happens, then there's not much you can say. Anyway, let's carry on.
Noah Hoffman from The Sun.
Thank you, Nigel. I was wondering if I could get your reaction, please, to the march in Tower Hamlets, where there were hordes of masked men. Downing Street refuses to say, when asked, that British Jews are currently being threatened by a rise in Islamist extremists. Like, they literally will not acknowledge that. What would you do to tackle this issue under a reform government?
Well, you raised that point, and if you really want to talk about racism over the weekend, then, whilst I've already said I thought Sarah's comments were ugly and out of place, though not intentioned to be deeply unpleasant, there was proper racism happening in Tower Hamlets over the weekend, but no one's asked a question about that until you. Yeah. None of the broadcasters are even interested in that, and I doubt they'll show the pictures. Yeah, outright intimidation to the point of sort of basically urging the mass wipeout of huge numbers of Jewish people. I have to say, Noah, I thought the scenes of those men, in many cases masks on, women brushed aside, not welcome to be any part of it. I actually think it's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in my whole life. And what a telling moment. The leftist stand up to racism were there with their banners. And one says to one of these mass marchers, we're on the same side. To which the response comes, no, we're not. Maybe one day, the deluded left will wake up to realise they've been with very strange bedfellows.
I can tell you this from experience, they'll never wake up to it. Never. There'll be like a group of I don't wish for this to happen. There'll probably be a group of leftists on the ground with swords through their summers. What? Why? Why did you do this? I'm still on your side. And no matter if they tell them, they explain to them in a short space of time, whatever, how much of life they got inside of them, on the ground with a sword through their stomach. Bitch, you're never on our side. I've been told like a million times. You got the rainbow flag on you. You're talking about gay rights. What? Just stop laughing at them. And the last breath probably say, maybe there's still time. No, there isn't any time, morons. You still don't get it. All right. So I don't agree with Farage. They'll wake up because they never will wake up to this. Never.
Organisations like Queers for Palestine spring to mind pretty quickly. No, I thought the scenes were absolutely terrifying. It was like a foreign invading army marching through our streets, and I defy anyone in this room to tell me that's wrong. I really, genuinely do. OK, we're halfway through. Ben Clatworthy from The Times.
Blimey, halfway through? When did this start? 25 minutes in? 20 minutes later? Jesus. I tweeted about this earlier. I wish the press here had just as much zeal they got for passing this graduate towards Farage as they would do for someone like, I don't know, Keir Starmer. But obviously not. It's coming up now.
On the comments that Sarah Pounchin made, you say they were ugly and were very implicit.
So, did you see that there? So a little bit further back, before I ask the question. Watch Ellie there.
On the comments that Sarah Pouchin made, you say they were ugly and were very unpleasant.
Do you want before Nigel? I think you've been asked this a million times. Do you want me to step in? And she's getting really, really frustrated with this crap, and I blame her. So this is what Farage is saying. And I think Ellie speaks after this. I think it's this moment here.
Indeed. However, going back to earlier points, can you explain how they're not racist?
I've already said, taken on their own and not in context, you could read them that way. Within the broader picture of the sort of collective madness under the DEI banner that has overcome the advertising industry, that is the context in which they're made. But they were very unwise words to utter in any context, all right? I don't think I can be clearer about that, but I don't believe they had a deep racist intention behind them. If I did, I would have acted differently. And I think if you look, Ben, at my career, over a quarter of a century in public life, you know, I've always made sure, whichever party I've been running or in a senior position, that we didn't align with anything like that at all. And I've been very strict on that. I'm going way back to the early 2000s, in that being the view, and one that I've upheld right throughout my time in politics and public life. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the moment she interrupts, says, can I say something about this? Because she just was waiting for that moment, thinking, you guys are just... We're done with you now. So here it is. Here's the part where she unleashes. It's actually very short, but it's a great response. Listen to this.
Yeah, please do.
I find it quite, overwhelming as well that every single one of these medias has said something about a comment that was made by Sarah, which is understandable, absolutely fine. Yet it's taken medias decades to recognise grooming gangs that are coming over and raping our children because they're white. That is also racially motivated, and it is racist.
As I said, take a bow. Take a bow. And even, I can say right now, he hushed them up, but a lot of them in that room were either one, embarrassed obviously, and two, don't like her. Which leads on, because I want to watch the rest of this now, that was the critical part of the whole of the conference. Well, you go and watch it for yourselves. It's on YouTube, on Reform UK's YouTube channel, as well as on Nigel Farage's Twitter account as well. And I'll tell you what it is. It's precisely that. That's the part which is causing the grooming gang inquiry to fall apart the way it is. Because people like Ellie and the others as well, I think Elizabeth Harper's one of them as well. I forget the other lady's name, forgive me. There's actually 5 in total, or maybe 6 in total now, that have come out and quit the inquiry. What's happening is that, just like we saw recently in Scotland, today there was a case of Romanian men and plus one woman who were grooming young women into sexual activity and things like that. And people were saying, what about that? Well, here's the difference though. You have to understand this. That's equally bad. But no one's covering that up. That's the difference. What they did with Ellie and others was a cover-up. That's why they're trying to have an inquiry, have it on record, and bring justice to those who ignored this abuse for so long for the sake of political correctness, wherever it might be. Okay? That's why we're angry about this. Everybody's angry about this. So when it comes to the Labour Party, what's happening there is that not so it looks bad on them, or the people that typically vote for them, which I find it hard to believe, they still think that's true. Believe me, a majority of Muslims in this country, if we're given the actual facts and not have propaganda spewed on them and actually go to the same schools as we do, got themselves an education based on Britain and its values and morals and ethics, they'll probably vote for Reform UK, not Labour Party. So I don't know what's actually cropped in their mind in all this. Never mind that. They're scared of those voters who were typically voting for them might end up voting for other parties should Labour come out and say, you know what, these were Pakistani grooming gangs, in particular Muslim ones, and it's all bad, we apologise, right? That looks bad on them. And as Farage mentioned earlier in his answers, one of the answers he put earlier, was that a lot of these places are run by Labour councils. Okay, they're in trouble, deep trouble, and they're still holding on to that right up to this point. Their jobs, their pensions, and everything else. If they get caught up in all this, any of these councillors and those in social services, they're done for. In particular, go to jail, of course, but all that money source cuts off. So there is all that happening. So there is money involved in this. This is the reason why why Labour are trying to delay it and play a game here. In addition to that, the ladies like, because obviously, Ellie was there, I'm not. The victims are there, we're not. Obviously, the victims are, and the survivors, I should say, of grooming gangs. They were there thinking, well, we want to bring this up because these were, Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs. The Labour Party, in particular, Joseph Phillips, trying to say we understand that, but let's not make it all about that. Right? Let's not make it all about that, because if our concentration warning comes here, we're going to have a quote-unquote riot on our hands, not from the public necessarily, but these girls are saying we want closure on this. We're not looking to cause a problem and cause mayhem. You are completely denying the fact this actually happened, right? And we're trying to come forward and tell you it did happen, and we want justice. We want those people who are complicit, right, who kept quiet, who were in fact committing some crimes by not passing the right information across, who didn't do their job properly, either are shamed, and as they should be, like all of them should be named and shamed, but those who actually committed crimes, taken to court, put for a court of law, and put up in jail. That's called justice. This is not justice when you say around and say to them, sorry, but we can't make it about just grooming gangs because it looks bad on us. That's exactly why Labour are delaying this. There's no other reason for it. Okay? And on the word of why I think that Farage played a blinder in conclusion, why I think Farage played a blinder, is because he clearly saw the fact that Sarah Pojan's comments, which I agree with him, were stupid. This whole thing about going talk TV, and I said this at the beginning of the stream, is just stupid. Why are you going on there talking about this stuff? I have no idea. Well, it was answer to a question. Well, just say, look, if maybe the proportion of numbers of people you see on TV is not representative of the country, but so be it. That means a perfectly normal answer to give, right? Don't need to go into saying there's too many quote-unquote brown people, whatever it is on TV. You're asking for trouble, okay? So this is why Farage was angry. Have to come out and respond to this crap, because that's what it was. Then I have to make some sort of, apology, half apology about it. Now I want to come out and talk about these other things which are more important because they are. I think you have even people who I've seen respond to my video when I put out about Sarah Pershing being a moron, because that's what she was, saying these things matter. No, they don't matter. I know of not one person in the country that says, I didn't realise how multicultural after seeing that advert on TV. That's absolute bullshit. No one thinks like that. It's only in your head. Everyone on the right, for some reason, I have no idea why this happens, because I'm on the right too. I'm a traditionalist, right? I'm a conservative. I don't get this. On our side, we have to make a big deal out of everything. Everything that comes, I make a big deal out of it. No one is stopping you from putting your flag up in your home or outside your home, the England flag. No one is stopping you from getting the remote control and pressing mute or turn the TV channel off. No one is. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say we are the silent majority in this country and then think, well, all this multiculturalism stuff is actually stopping us from getting power. That makes no sense, because we're the silent majority, we're in power every time. Because clearly we're not the silent majority. We're not the majority in the country. Farage hasn't got time for this crap. The country's on the brink economically, and you're talking about adverts? That's what these idiots on the left do. Let them ramble on about it. Let Sarah Pochin go out and say, well, yeah, I think that, it's the case of there's probably, it does seem not representative of the country, but you know what? That's not my problem. That's it. But she went on Talk TV knowing damn well they were interested in clicks. So Reform UK MPs or councillors or those who support us make stupid mistakes like this, that's on you. Farage is running the party. A lot of things matter about the political party, especially in the UK. We are not like America. We're not bombastic. We're far more professional, far more laid back than they are. Just get angry about everything. Oh, they're attacking Trump. I need to stand in defense of him. I need to bow and worship Trump and protect him at all costs, no matter how wrong Trump might be. No, you do something wrong, you get called out on it. End of. You don't like it? Tough. Tough. You can never run a political party yourselves, guys. You haven't been as long as Farage has been in politics. And all the attacks he gets all the time. You don't put yourselves in his shoes. You don't pretend by sitting on the sidelines and think you're the victim. You're not. Farage is not the victim, neither are we. Just suck up and move on. And now, because of his conference he did, he played absolute blinder. No thanks to also his tag team partner in this case, Eddie Reynolds, coming out and saying what she said. No one's talking about Sarah Perch anymore. Just the media want to bring up from time to time. That's why I brought up this thing here. I'll show you now. Earlier on. That's the story they got from us. So you can see in the image, Ellie there, sitting next to Nigel Farage, where you click on the video clip on Sky News website, and it says, Nigel Farage unhappy with MP over clumsy comments but says they are not racist. Right? There's nothing in the article about this chit chat we just heard now. There's not even a quote from Eddie Reynolds in the Sky News article. That's my point I've always said. You've taken a situation like this and Farage actually managed to turn it on its head by doing this conference and spending, what is it now? In total, he spent 47 minutes. He goes on for an hour and 2 minutes. I think he starts talking, they start talking about 8 minutes in, so just under an hour. He put himself in front of the camera, all those questions fired out for all the media, and turn this whole thing on its head. Sarah Perch should be thanking Farage for this. Thanking him. Because now no one's going to be talking about Farage anymore. That's a non-story. It's done. In fact, if you go to Sky News website now, the David Lammy thing, so the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, actually the first batch of articles on Sky News now that I'm reading to you. David Lammy says human error led to migrant sex offenders' wrongful release, as he confirms an independent investigation. Labour are screwed on this. King heckled over Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein during visit. Alleged Melanie McCann family stalk had genuine belief she was a missing girl. What the hell that's about, I have no idea. Grooming gang jail for raping and sexually exploiting women. 24 hours in a kill zone. How hijacked drones have transformed Ukraine war, which we'll try and cover in more detail tomorrow in the stream Ukraine-Russia. UK regional airline suspends operations. World's strongest hurricane this year heads towards Jamaica as 200 Britons lock down hotel. Plan for Southport killer remove references to his anger. That's another controversy right there. Steve Coogan proud of Richard III film as he agrees to pay substantial damages in the libel case. Bit random. Activists who broke through airport fence and spray painted 2 planes are spared jail. You go even further down, more top stories. That's when you see Nigel Farage is unhappy with comments. But if you look at Sky News website, the first front page, it's not a story anymore, guys. Okay? There's no need to get antsy about it. People are really upset with Farage because he was pretty strong on Sarah. No, Farage done the right thing and made it clear. He has played, as I said earlier, an absolute blinder. That's in the stream, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow later on this week to cover more on Ukraine, Russia.